I spoke to a couple of guys at the beginning of the session a couple of weeks ago, and I mentioned I was going to be making something that I've been making for many years. And they said they'd love to see how I make mine, although they make them themselves. So I'm going to go into share screen and hope you'll enjoy. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yep. Right. Now, just to start off, this piece is actually copper laminate made for printed circuit boards. And to make it, I drilled a 1/2 inch hole in the center. And that black blob you see is the top of a spigot that I made that went through the piece of material. Then I put it back on the lathe, and using my indexer and setting the drill up and drawing a circle of a certain diameter, it's 3 1/4 inch, it's 2 7/8 diameter across, and I drilled 24 holes. Now, of course, if you only make one of these, you could do it by doing it directly on the lathe. But as I make 50, 60 of these over the last years, I make this template. Now, this template is for a single. I'll explain why in a moment. So this is the first piece. It's a template which goes on to make the next piece. Hello, where's it gone?
Can you hit your right arrow?
Yeah, I am. Oh, there we are. Right. The first thing is the piece of wood is 3, 3.5, 4 inches square. I've marked off the 2 rings to see that I can get it onto the piece of wood I have. And I drilled a 1/2 inch hole down through the center. So that is to take that jig you saw. So the next thing is, there's the jig being put into that 1/2 inch hole, and I'm now drilling a 2.5 mil hole into that piece of wood. I've stuck after I've drilled the first hole, I put a 2.5 drill in there to keep it static so it doesn't move and you get the holes out of true. And as I say, you could do this on the lathe if you're only making one. But if you're going to make 6, then this is the quicker way because you haven't got to keep changing the lathe settings. And there's the piece being drilled, waiting to be turned. So the next piece we go on to is my screw chuck. Now this screw chuck takes a piece of timber, which is 4.5 inches by inch, 1.25 inches thick. I drill a hole into the middle of it and I set it up on the screw chuck to turn the base of my particular piece that we're making. So this is the base, and there is the base of it being turned with a compression fit for the chuck when I reverse it. So I reverse it round and true it up. And then again, using a 1/2 inch bit, I drill a 1/2 inch hole in the middle of that piece of wood. As I say, this is the base. Shaping the base. Now that dip that you see, or the cup that's being produced, is for a purpose, and I'll explain it as we go along, unless anybody's guessed what I'm making yet. So that is the base, and it comes up and it gets finished like so. Now, the spindle, taking a piece of inch timber, approximately 6 or 7 inches long. I turn on one end after I've turned it to the round. I turn the first piece nearest the tailstock, the finial. the finial has a 5/16 spigot on the end, 3/4 of an inch long, and I finish off the spigot, the finial. There it is, and I part it off. The next thing I do, in the piece of wood that was left, I drill a 1/2 inch hole. Sorry, take that back. I drill a 5/16 hole. I then bring up the tailstock, and nearest to tailstock, that is a 1/2 inch spigot. And at the other end, it's also a 1/2 inch spigot. And from end to end is 3.5 inches. I sand and finish this piece off. That is just showing you, after I've sanded it, that the piece, the finial, actually fits into the hole that you drilled in the 1/2 inch spigot. This is so that when you assemble this, this will go into the centerpiece. That's the base. And then this will go inside the hole of the spigot, which is sitting inside the center of the piece you saw with all the drill holes. Now, this is my jig for turning the piece that I drilled the holes in. The piece in the middle is 1/2 inch. It's chamfered inside or coned inside with a conical piece here and an Allen screw. And you put the piece on with the holes on the outside, and by turning the Allen screw, you tighten this up onto your chuck, and
Don,
you
Don,
produce.
Don, where did you get that piece of metal?
I made it.
Okay.
I'll go back.
Okay.
That piece is an old piece of a record chuck. It was for a pin. Remember the old pin chucks? Used to drill a hole, put a round pin into it on the flat, and then when you tighten it up, the pin tightened it in the hole.
Huh.
So I got my grandson just to put on a chamfered edge here to go inside the chuck, and on the end I drilled a piece. I put this 1/2 inch bar in it and made it into this jam chuck. So then, as I say, we tightened it up. I've turned the face off, because all you're doing is facing that off, and I've turned it round, and now you can see I'm now shaping it, and I'm shaping it down to approximately 3/4 of an inch thickness, with a boss on the top here, and I'm turning this down until such times as you see the holes. And you can see the Allen screw here. So I've turned this down. I'm now going to shape it up, and this is 2.5 mil hole, and it's about 3/16 from the edge to the hole. There are the 4 pieces that make up the single, and I'll now tell you it's an earring stand.
I was going to guess that. I was thinking, so earring clips go in the holes?
No, the earring clips go in the holes, and the base is for the studs, hence dishing of the base.
Very clever.
Okay, now, of course, that's a single. There are 3 more jigs made the same way, except piece of fiberglass and plastic.
Huh.
The base can be either the Perspex one or the one you saw originally, but this is depending on how big you want to make it. So you have 24 holes and you have 18 holes. Forget the top one for a minute. So you do the same process to do this second piece, exactly the same as you turn this piece. Except when you're making your spindles, you do the same thing, make your finial, 5/16 hole, drill the 1/2 inch hole, 1/2 inch spigot, 5/16 spigot, 1/2 inch with the 5/16 hole and the base to fit in, and you get that. And of course, if I go back, now you've used the 24-inch one, you used the 18-inch, you've now got a 12-inch one. And there are the same the pieces to make up the 12. The same thing, you turn the top one, the same as you turn these other two, and you just add an added spigot to it. Now, the difference between the size on the 2 and the 3, on the single, it's 3.5 inches on the first piece, but on these, it's 3 inches, 2.5, and 2. And on the double one, it's 3 inches and 2.5 inches. And that makes that one. And when you've got them all together, you have your earrings, sounds.
That's wonderful. Don, do you give these as gifts or do you sell them?
I sell these at craft fairs, and over the years, I must have sold somewhere in about 200.
Wow.
So Don, it looked like the first one you turned there may have been red oak. What's the other wood, and what do you use for a finish on them?
Right. I'll come out the share. Stop share. Right. The first one is recycled wood. It's actually a piece of worktop, beach worktop. They are sanded sealer and buffed. The second one was actually English white oak.
Okay.
And he's finished exactly the same way.
Very nice.
But the third one is sported beech. We've got the sporting on here and down here. And that is sported beech, done exactly the same way.
Very nice.
So Christmas is coming, so it might give you some ideas for your lady wives, girlfriends. I won't say boyfriends.
Don, I love the idea. I was wondering if you had considered making the spindle taller, and instead of using holes for earrings, put pegs in them to make it essentially a necklace holder instead of an earring holder. It's a lot of tedious spindle to make the little finials for them all, but I thought it would be a neat expansion.
I hadn't thought about that, because I do make a necklace one, but she's slightly different, more like a mug holder. If you can imagine a mug holder with the mugs being put on, and I make those like that with 12 pegs in, so that they all hang at slight different angles in 3 different heights.
Oh, nice. Yep.
You would need a bigger base, wouldn't you?
Sorry, Jim?
You'd need a bigger base, wouldn't you, for a
You
necklace?
would need a slightly bigger base to balance it, yeah, because you've got to go out a bit to get 12 necklaces on it.
Nice.
Any other questions? Any ideas? I have got drawings. If anybody wanted it, I could send it to John and he could post it for you if you'll need it. But it's quite straightforward, really. It's just picking up, making those, as I say, if you make one, then you could do it on the lathe. That's no problem, because you're just using your dividing head and set up a drill that is dead on center. But if you make a lot of them, then you're best off making a template like I've done and use that to drill them, because it's so much faster than keep going and 1, number 2, number 3 on the lathe. Whereas you just go to the drill press one and straight down through it. And I don't drill right the way through. I only drill approximately a third way into the timber when I'm drilling the little holes, because you're wasting time if you try to go right the way through. And if
Hey,
you're
Don.
in production, you don't want to waste time. I
Hey,
see
Don,
Mike
what-
laughing.
What finish do you put on before buffing? I missed that.
Sander sealer,
That's
cellulose
all.
sander sealer.
Okay.
And then I actually use 4 buffs. I use the brown compound, the white compound, and then I put on Canubi and buff it off with a dry mop.
Oh, okay.
Huh.
So you
Yeah.
use the dry mop. The reason I'm asking, I just recently created a little Beal system buffer for my lathe. And do you use a dry mop on the end would seem like a good choice, because it felt like I couldn't get the carnauba polished off well enough with the wheel. So if
That's
you use
what-
a dry one, it would clean
That's
it up.
why I use the dry one. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to add that to mine.
And
Yeah.
That's
After a
nice to
while,
know.
if you just get a piece of nicely polished oak, if you like, just use that on the edge of a square and just buff off your dry mop just to take any surplus wax off. And I find it works well.
You're
Yep.
putting too much canuba on, Jim.
Is
You're
it?
applying too much to the wheel.
If you
I
put
know,
too much on, yeah.
I need to pay you a credit, because I went to your demo and I go, oh my God, because I had stuck way too much
Mhm.
You
the
just
abrasive on first, and then I said, oh gosh, because I worry there's not enough on it. All you're doing is just rubbing the cloth against the wood. So
no, just touch it. Don't push it on as if you're going to buff the wood. Just touch it, and probably do jobs with that one touch.
it's typical me. I was there like grinding it in. Then I saw Mike's video and I go, oh shit, I did. Oops, sorry, I did too much. So is there any way to get that stuff off those wheels when you get too much on?
Yeah, use a square end board. Some people use there's a special tool you can buy. It's got little jagged teeth. You
Yeah.
could probably use a coarse bandsaw blade fastened down in some kind of way, but just a board with a kind of not a really super clean edge, and just hold it in there.
And then how do you know if you have enough on when you need to add some? That's the other part.
Well, you for the triple E, you hold it on there for several seconds, maybe
Right.
3 seconds. For the white diamond, you only have it on there for about a second. And for Canuba, I think you only put it on there for about a second.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
almost show it to the buffing wheel and take it away.
Yeah. It's also the fastest I ever ran my lathe. I've never run my lathe at 2000 RPM. I have 4-inch wheels, so I was running at 2000, so, as per Mike's instructions. So,
Yeah. I find the 8-inch wheel is the best.
yeah. But I had to buy them, and you can't buy them on Amazon.
Yes, you can.
Can you really? Okay, I'm gonna go look.
Yeah, you can buy them on Amazon. That's where I bought mine from, because I found them cheaper than the manufacturers or the people who sell us all this wood turning equipment. Their prices are pretty astronomical. Go on Amazon, you get them about £4 cheaper.
Just make sure you get the ones that aren't stitched.
Yeah, don't get 6 ones.
Yeah, I learned that. Again, thanks, Mike.
And that's because they're too rigid, right?
Too stiff, yeah.
Yeah, too stiff.
Yeah, you want to be able to go with the profile of the piece you're buffing. If you
Right.
have it too stiff, it won't go with that profile.
Right. And then it'll jack it out of your hands.
Yeah.
It can still
That's
do
always
that
fun.
even with the soft mop.
Yeah, the first time I learned I need to lay a thick towel over my lathe bed, because one got out of my hand, and sure enough, a ding on the lathe ways, and
Yep.
I said, "Okay, towel from now on." So
Anyway,
I
that's
also
all I've
put
got.
horse
Thank
mats.
you.
I also go ahead. I'm sorry, Don. Go ahead.
I said, that's all I have. So I hope to
Oh.
inspired one or two of you on to make something for Christmas.
Oh, absolutely. So Don, if you want to email your plans to John Kelsey, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll tidy them up. I'll just show you what they look like. If you can put me on.
Okay, hold on for a sec. Oh, now I lost. Here we go. Okay. Great.
That's
That's
what
it.
I've got, which is fairly comprehensive. It shows you, here's the single down the bottom up here. This is a single. And then it just shows you here the double, and then you just add the piece for the triple and the different diameters for the different holes. So
Excellent.
hopefully, if I send that, don't take any notice, but if you get it, you can make your own design for your spindles and everything else. It's the only thing is it gives you dimensions and shows you how it's put together. But you can make your own design of spindles and finials. You don't have to copy what's on the drawing, because this
Very
drawing
nice.
was made back in probably about 1998.
Wow.
And you could still find it, Don? I'm impressed.
When I first started, Jim, I first of all used to have an old diary, and I used to write in that diary what it was and the size of material I cut for it. Then I started a card system, and then I started drawing. When I drew them, I kept them in a folder, and it's amazing. I haven't made one of these now for about 4 years. I went back to the folder, found the drawing, and it was as if I'd made it yesterday. I can remember it just
That's
by
great.
being, because I was going into craft fairs and doing a lot of craft fairs. I wanted to be able to go back and see what I wanted and how it was made very quickly, so I could make more of them. Whereas if you go into something and you make it, go back a year later and think, now, how the hell did I do that? And I think Mike will agree here.
Yeah.
It's important that you keep records of what you turn, because you never know. Somebody will come along in 6 years' time and say, do you remember you made that for somebody? Yeah, well, could you make me one? And then you have to put your thinking cap on. If you've got the drawing, you can make it within a couple of hours.
Yeah, I keep a folder for each video with all the bits and pieces, including the script. So I either go back and watch a video, or I just go to that folder. They're all in date order, and pull up the script, and that'll give me any details on dimensions or size drill bits or any of the details that you wouldn't normally remember.
Yeah, yeah.
I even write on the disc, like that disc with the holes in it. I write on there what it's for, because 2 years later you pick up that thing and you have no idea which way up it goes or what it fits or anything else.
Well, that's, if you remember the plastic ones you saw,
Yep,
they had all written on them what they were.
yep, I noticed
Copper
that.
one didn't,
Yep.
because the copper one is just a copper ring. I'll just show you that before you go. That's the edge of it. So in the dowel going through the center, which
Yeah.
I've arrowdited into the center before I put it into the lathe. So I made certain I got the complete concentric ring of holes around it. So that is the copper one.
Wood shop. Thank God for wood.